Hi, I'm Rich Sains, and this is the Procurement Conversation. In this series, I've been fortunate to speak with inspirational young procurement leaders from different sectors, roles and regions. By sharing their stories, we want more people to hear about procurement, including the leaders of tomorrow.
This week, as part of our Young Leaders series, we're talking to Lada Samarska, who's Community Manager at Precoro. Hi, Lada.
Hi, good to be here.
So, Lada, how did you get into procurement and why didn't you do something else?
I think that, as for a lot of people, it wasn't my goal to get into procurement. It wasn't my intention. I think a lot of us just fall into it. Basically, when I was studying at uni, I got reached out to by our CEO, Andrew. I had no clue what procurement was and had zero experience in B2B, SaaS, anything like that. But I was like, okay, I haven't done much up till that point, so I decided to take my chances. I love the team and the work that we were doing. I remember one of my first memories was like, oh, haven't everybody automated everything by now? Like, why are even softwares, why are we even doing this? And then I saw just how many people still are struggling with like paper POs and no three-way match, no visibility. And I was like, I'm doing the right thing. So I love that. And it's been 2.5 years now. I've worked first with sales team, then with marketing team. And yeah, that's about it. It's exciting.
And what do you love about working with procurement?
I love that it runs through lives of people invisibly. They don't even know about it. I was talking to somebody once and made me realize that mostly everything that you see around yourself has been procured at some point. Mic that you're speaking into, it had to get the parts and then it had to be made and shipped. And there were so many deals made and so many deadlines and contracts and negotiations behind that. And when you look around, that's everything. Pretty much everything that you see that's human made. And I find that fascinating, and the whole concept of supply chains and how much work goes into developing any one product. I love being a part of that.
And what does a normal day look like for you?
I'm a community manager at Precoro, and what that means for our company, it means that I'm responsible for our events, webinars, conferences, LinkedIn, and case studies. That's a lot of things, and my job involves a lot of collaborative work with our team, with our content writers, designers, product team, then customer success team, but also working with our partners, clients, and webinar guests. So it's both internal and external stakeholders. And that means a lot of meetings and emails and planning, which is, I think, the biggest part of my job. I usually work on a couple of projects at a time, a couple of case studies in a webinar or 2 webinars and some other external project. So that involves a lot of organizational work, getting everybody on the same page. Yeah. And I share a lot of my thoughts on LinkedIn. So I spend some time kind of making connections, writing my thoughts out, sharing, and yeah, that's my day.
Anything you do that you don't like so much?
Not really. People, as in any work that requires other people's input, you run into a lot of time issues sometimes or deadline issues. I've learned to account for that the hard way, that when you expect a response even in a week, you should account for 3 weeks. So that's a thing. But other than that, no. I do get annoyed with people not knowing what procurement is at all when I reach out. I think that's a very big part of my job, because when you start doing something and you feel like it's important, you want other people to think that it's important. And yeah, I've been telling my friends for some 3 years in a row now about what procurement is. And I think they're starting to get the idea.
What do you see as being the external perception of procurement?
What it is at all. And that's coming from startup founders or people in consulting or a lot of people in business at all. Because for them, procurement is this side function or a thing that they have to do when they're buying new tech, or like something, oh, I am submitting this request to procurement team, but they have no idea what procurement actually is. And one of my projects was, I had this idea that for startup founders, when they start getting VC money and they're burning through it so fast, and I was like, they need some control over their spend. And I've heard horror stories about that, and I was so excited about it. And then I started talking to founders, and they're like, I have no clue what you're talking about. I've never heard of procurement before. I have no idea they know finance, and especially in like accelerators and stuff, they get lectures on how to develop their sales function, how to develop marketing function, operations, but they never hear of procurement. I think the biggest problem with perception of procurement is no perception at all. They just don't know it exists.
It's a good point. So procurement for startups is a business opportunity there,
That is,
or not if they don't if they don't know it is.
it's an education opportunity.
What would you say the key skills are that we need in procurement?
I think that in the past year, especially, I've noticed that focus is such a big thing. We have so many distractors. Let's put it like they distracting factors. I think in the past year they have come out like 100 different procurement tech solutions. I was amazed and scared at DPW, seeing everybody. And then you get hundreds of emails and messages saying that this is so important and this is why digitalization should be on your mind and this is the next thing. I'm not even gonna get into the AI craze like that. We all see that. So I think keeping the eye on what your process is, on your people, on your business need, keeping that in mind above the desire to implement the next thing because you want to try it out. I think that's become very important. I don't think it has been that distracted in the past. Thinking for future, of course, we've all seen the supply chains getting disrupted every year. It's not even that surprising anymore. Like in the past, it used to be a shock. Now it's this year's occurrence. Was it COVID or Brexit or the war? So I think that's something to keep in mind. That's more of a daily skill now. You have to think about that all the time. And I think being vocal, because it's hard to consider that in our LinkedIn bubble where it seems like everybody's vocal and everybody's posting every day, all the time. But then there are so many thousands of procurement people just doing their job really well every day. And they're carrying out projects and saving stakeholders and saving complex relationships, deals. And I think if the everyday heroes spoke up a little more often about their contentment with the job or their achievements, what they like about it, we would have less issues bringing new procurement into the field, new procurement professionals.
That's a great point. I think, on LinkedIn, we don't see as many voices from practitioners. And as you say, they're likely to be heads down delivering in the day job. But that is useful to get that perception of procurement out there, which is maybe missing. How do you learn and develop yourself?
Mostly, I think from the conversations with people around me. When I just started in our marketing team, which was about a year and a few months ago, I made myself a list of people that I looked up to, people in the field. And I am proud to say that I've met in person or spoke with all of them by now. I am actually sitting on your podcast now. You were on the list, and Tom and Daniel, and so I think that these conversations really helped me develop a broader perspective. I love listening to our customer success team also because they work with customers every day. And those are actual companies with actual business processes. They're not theoretical, they're very real. And I think that's one of the biggest things. And then I found that reading new legislative documents that come out has been very important, like the German Supply Chain Act or British Procurement Act or ESG regulations in the US versus the EU in the past year especially. I think these documents will carry a lot of impact in the coming years, in the coming decade. So I think that's very important to keep yourself updated before it reaches you unexpectedly.
Definitely. And what are you most proud of in your career?
It's a side note, it's not as much about me personally, but I'm proud of our team at Precoro. In the past couple of years, the market has been so flooded with VC money. And as I said, there were so many new solutions that came up at DPW. And I think there were 30 scale ups and 70 startups like very small companies just starting out that got investment and could afford to be at the stand, to buy the stand. But there are so many more in the background. And I see for a lot of those companies, since they get investors' money, they have to focus on returns to VCs. And that sometimes takes over their focus on the customer and actual procurement people. Because when you have to ramp up deal amounts, you might not be providing the best experience or the value or what people actually need. And Precoro is bootstrapped, and we don't have to worry about any of that. And having been in the market for 9 years now, being bootstrapped is already a big achievement. But especially in the current market, I really am proud of our team for seeing this market turbulence and just continuing to develop our product, develop what we believe is important against all odds. If you listen to our customers, it seems like we have something to show for it after all.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of respect to anyone who's bootstrapping a company. It's very easy to spend a load of VC money, but it's very difficult when you've got to take that money that you're getting from customers and building a product off the back of it. It's a big job. Looking ahead, where do you see procurement going?
I think, like, I wrote about this before on LinkedIn, but I see this huge gap between the front runners in the field and companies trying to catch up. And that's a big share of companies in the industry and teams. It reached me at DPW because I had a few conversations with CPOs, and some of them, we were talking about new technology and things coming out, and they were treating AI as if it was so last season. It was so yesterday. Oh yeah, we implemented that already, and OCR has been around for 20-something years now, and this is not surprising at all. And we are looking next into blockchain and whatnot, landing on moon. And I was like, okay. And then you go into every day, and there are still companies with paper PO going through them every time they get a new invoice or get a new delivery at the end of quarter, at the end of month. And there is just such a gap between those. I'm not sure either one of those leaders understand that the other one exists. And I think that we are moving towards leveling out the field a little with these software solutions becoming more accessible. In the past, it was just ERPs for big enterprises that could afford them. Nowadays, again, so many new solutions at very different price points, also very different quality points, but that's on a separate note. I think that's a good thing, but also the sheer number of solutions is causing a bit of chaos right now for the buyers because they have to navigate all that. And that just takes a lot of time to figure out what would work for you and what are. Figuring out your requirements is a big task, but then trying on your requirements on 100 softwares to see which one fits. That's much bigger project than it used to be in the past. But let's see, because again, as I said, with the influx of VC money, that money comes to an end at some point. So everybody's talking about the big consolidation coming. Let's see. What is it in the words of Warren Buffett? When the tide goes out, you learn who was swimming naked. Let's see.
It's a great point. What do you see yourself doing next?
I think about this a lot, as many young professionals. Can be surprising, but I would love to, in some point in the future, either work with a manufacturing company or in procurement conference field. Why? As much as I enjoy working in SaaS, I really appreciate seeing physical results of my work. My previous job was with the commercial furniture manufacturer. I was helping them enter the US market. And I remember that one time, to make it all a little less theoretical for me, our CEO back then took me to their production plant, and it had a very strong impact on me because I loved seeing the results of market research and talking to people turn into negotiations and then deals and then physical orders that were shipped out in containers, and then seeing photos of that furniture land in hotels or restaurants or so on around the world. And I find that fascinating because writing posts is great, sharing knowledge is great, but then seeing the impact of that. And I feel the same about conferences. I loved DP, and I loved seeing all of these people come together to share ideas, realizing that it was somebody else's work for a year or so to find the place, find the speakers, ship everything in, sell the tickets, bring everybody together, the book and so on. But then you see this crowd, 1.5, 2,000 people, and you realize that is going to go for much further than these 2 days. The impact of the event, as in, I want to try one or the other.
Nice. Yeah, I think you get a real energy from conferences, don't you? It's really palpable when you're in there. So, yeah, no, really fully understand that one. What advice would you give to someone who's considering a career in procurement?
That's a tough question. I think I'd say speak to someone who's done it for 5 to 7 years now. I think for a lot of people who've been in procurement field for, I don't know, a few decades, they've seen a lot by now, like so many changes, and then every crisis seems like the biggest one yet, but then it passes. But then for people who have gotten into procurement more recently, they have a more fresh perspective, I think. But also, to anybody that you speak in procurement, try and find one person that is unhappy with their career choice. I think that's a very tough task, and everybody I've spoken to up till this day that never regretted the choice of getting here because it's so fulfilling, and it can be as fulfilling as you make it. Like, you can be very surface level, you can focus on savings and just making your non-procurement colleagues' lives miserable, but then you can think broader and you can watch the market and learn from peers, plan for the future, and see yourself flourish and the career flourish, because it depends so much on people around you and you developing those relationships and the skills you will develop in procurement. You are never going to regret having them, because they're going to put you ahead of a lot of people, both in understanding the operational side of the business, but also strategic. So that's, I think, procurement fresh out of the college, at least 2-3 years, so you get what it is. A lot of people say that you have to work in service field. Go work at a cafe to understand how this works, people and so on. I think everybody should work in procurement too. Make it a staple.
Definitely, I agree with that. And how do you think we could get more young people into procurement?
I think that one of the biggest things would be adding procurement as a module to universities, to business schools. Like, I studied at a business school for 3 years, and we've touched supply chain for, I don't know, 2 lectures, maybe, perhaps. And given that most of my friends are from the same business school, and I've been explaining the concept of procurement to them for 3 years now, hasn't worked very well. And I think, same as we talked about the kind of impression of procurement from the outside, people just don't know it exists. And so introducing it to young professionals early on, give it as an option, I think that would already increase our chances of attracting more people. And also making available the internships where you don't have to have previous work experience. That's the bane of existence for students, trying to find an internship, a job that will give you experience, but nobody wants to hire you without any. And I think that opening up more of those opportunities of internships or trainee positions would give us a big competitive advantage over a lot of fields like finance or operations, where people, similarly minded people, go instead. They could go into procurement. We just need to give them space.
Definitely. And as a procurement solutions provider, or working for a procurement solutions provider, would you recommend that someone goes into that first, or goes into procurement first and then goes into a solutions provider? Is there a sort of a better pathway out of the two?
I mean, of course, I think that getting experience on hand first will always be beneficial. Like, when you have been in the shoes of a procurement professional, of somebody in the field, you much better understand the pain points when you've done it yourself. I think for me, what worked out in that sense, because I haven't worked in an actual procurement team before, when I just came to Precoro, I had this project where I had to talk to our customers and understand their process, understand their pain points, and whether or not they were satisfied with the solution, with the process that they had set up. And I think I talked to about 50 different companies in a month and a half. that gave me a very real perspective, because they do not back away. They tell you how it is, what their process looks like, whether it's working or not. That's especially great when they are customers already. They expect it to work well, so they'll be honest. And I love that. So you can get that experience, like secondhand experience like that also. But of course, working in the field first and then finding the problem that you want to solve and finding a company that solves it, or found a company that solves it, will always be the best path.
Brilliant. Well, Lada, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Love talking to you.
Thanks for listening. Do like and share and subscribe to hear the next procurement conversation.